Let's talk about society and politics. Presented by Smith Co. Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk About Society and Politics with Smith Co. So today we're going to be looking at Benedict Anderson. So let's have a little look at Benedict Anderson. So Benedict Anderson was born in China in 1936. Basically what happened was he was a political scientist. He was best known for his works on nationalism. So while he was born in China, he was actually born to an English mother and an Irish father. So he was though that was the case, he was actually educated in his mother's place of birth, which was England. He was educated in the United Kingdom at Eton College and Cambridge University. So very high class, top of the range English universities and colleges, although some would say not the best ones to send your child to. Some of the worse human beings have gone there. I'm not saying that everyone who goes to Eton and Cambridge is bad. I'm just saying, Eton, Cambridge, you have a reputation of getting high jobs, but those people that get into those jobs are sometimes often in a different psyche. Anyway, so he once said that though I was educated in England from the age of 11, it was difficult to imagine myself as English. He preferred to actually travel on his father's nationality of an Irish passport, and yet he claimed Irish citizenship. Anderson actually had a very successful academic career in the United States at Cornell University in New York. Before moving to Ireland, he then, obviously later on, he moved to Indonesia. He said that he was returning to the place he said he influenced him the most. So he wrote a book called Imagined Communities, Reflections on the Origins and Spread of Nationalism. So in this book, what he sought to explain was the conditions to create creation of nationalism were particularly during the 18th and 19th centuries. He claimed that nations were actually imagined concepts, which you could argue is true. I mean, what I'm saying is, technically, the whole United States of America, Canada, Brazil, Mexico, all these countries that are in North, South, Central America are actually in one landmass. So technically, that is actually one landmass. Well, that's actually one landmass. You wouldn't really necessarily think, let's split that into pieces. It's the same with Europe, Asia, and Africa. Europe, Asia, and Africa are actually all connected as one landmass, as of this recording. So basically, if you go to any of the mainland European countries, politically speaking, you cannot go to Africa necessarily from one of the European countries or one from the Asian countries. You can't go to Africa, but physically speaking, if you just ignore the politics, if there were no actual borders, you can physically come because it's physically joined by land. So that sort of thing. So technically, these are all one landmass. So you could argue, but of course, there's a slight difference, which is what about islands? Anyway, so he claimed the nations were imagined concepts and the people believe they are part of one because of a perceived common history and beliefs, a shared identity. The resulting nations or nation states are imagined political and economic communities. They are both limited, because borders are, they end somewhere, and sovereign. The power will rest with the nation itself. So people will unite behind the images and symbols of their nation to create a sense of nationalism. So many countries will do this. Some countries take it a little bit too far, becoming almost, somewhat, just a little bit too far. But other countries, you'd be able to notice this. You could argue whatever you like, it's your opinion, I guess. But Anderson spoke about the existence and realities of, the human condition, the desire to avoid feeling isolated and to be an integral part of the community with a shared identity. Of course, you may feel isolated, but that doesn't mean you are. That sounds creepy. Yeah, that sounds very creepy. If you put it in a certain way, it just sounds like someone's like, there's someone there. You don't think it, but there is. No, that's not what the point I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say is that although you may feel isolated, there is generally someone there. They may not be necessarily a friend or family or even anything like that. They may, but there's someone there, and sometimes, you may not realize that, and that happens all the time, and that's he's saying that people feel isolated. So they avoid feeling isolated, so they start to kind of try to become an integral part of the community, and they try to create a shared identity or join one. So he saw that the oddities in social life as he travelled, studied and lived all over the world. So Anderson observed how people clung to this idea of nationalism in the largest community that they felt part of, their nation. Here they would have a shared experience, languages, religion, culture, values and norms. Obviously, you could argue shared experiences, yeah, but how hard those experiences are does change depending on the people you meet. Oftentimes you will find that the majority of a country have had a shared experience. Recently enough, economic crashes have affected the majority of people, but there's still been people out there who've, not been hit as badly. Then languages, of course, the problem with languages is that, languages are actually, based off generally other languages. So there's that where you go, well, languages aren't always, but they do help sometimes. Of course, religion is, I discussed before. I'm not hating on other religions. I'm just saying, you gotta be accepting of other religions, because if you can't prove something is correct, then why be against other religions? It's like, well, all religions welcome, or why would you pick one? So there's actually more evidence of the existence for some religion than there are others, and although those others are oftentimes like, no, not the other religions, it just causes problems. Next, we have cultural values and norms. Now, cultural values and norms, they do tend to be present in nationalism, and people have an understanding of nationalism to be cultural heritage, although he argued that the meaning of nationalism has actually changed through history. Anderson developed the Hobbesian view on the social contract, arguing that society was originally organized around leaders for protection. Now, obviously, you could argue it was more of a sort of thing where, I have the soldiers, you either come with me, let me be your ruler, or, you're going to be killed. So that's not always, it's a bit of a loose way around it. You could say, well, yeah, but is that protection really wanted? Then so society evolved, and eventually it became organized around governments or states, characterized by the dynamics of capitalism. Could say that. Could argue against it or could argue with it. So all belief in monarchical rule will be replaced by a new state, a shared language, and a modern comradeship, which resulted in a larger community to feel part of a socially constructed nation. The idea of nationalism was born from the formation of a community with a shared nationalist identity. Now, obviously, that is an argument you can make. Obviously you wouldn't, I'm not saying that, kings are always awful, but sometimes having a monarchical rule it's not always the best. Anderson actually encouraged people to look at history and notice how nations became sovereign at a time of enlightenment and revolution, where sovereign nations actually overpowered and replaced divine leadership supported by John Locke. He pointed out that, unlike other great isms, nationalism hasn't produced any of its own key grand thinkers. Well, that's a statement which could be argued, but we'll leave that alone. So, anyways, let's come out to our 10-minute mark. So, hopefully, that's the end of the video. But hopefully, you will join us next time. We'll be continuing to look at Benedict Anderson. He's quite a topic. So basically, please do subscribe to the channel. It does help, and so does viewing other videos. That just helps as well. So if you do that, thank you. And thank you for viewing this one as well. So anyway, do join us next time, and if you do, we'll see you then. And if you don't, well, and we don't see another video, well, bye then. Bye, and yeah, goodbye then.